maybe here we'll get a better glimpse of how it works. But I wanted to talk about here with Swidz deck, which is a Bomb Warrior deck.
You know, sorry, I should amend. He will be playing the beatdown. How he does that is where this gets very interesting indeed, because Swidz, when he was up against RDU in his first series of this tournament, which was pretty much an identical matchup to this one, Control Warrior versus Bomb Warrior, he was playing very weirdly. He was saving his bombs until right at the end, until Archivist Elysiana has been played, to try and get them to activate then.
The facial reaction from Swidz. In his first game versus RDU, Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, was literally his last card in his deck that he could play. And the facial reaction of him drawing the Dr. Boom Mad Genius, to me, is just such a good payoff for that moment, where it's like, it is in here.
I'm still worthy.
Because 29 cards into his deck, I guarantee at some point it crossed his mind, did I forget? I know I submitted, but did I forget?
Can you imagine if someone actually did and they were like, sorry, you have to play it?
I built a Mechathune deck last night, and when I got to my 30th card, and I went, where's my Mechathune? I realized how tired I was.
Isn't that so weird how that happens and they're in Grandmasters and you're casting? It's just strange how these
Thanks,
things
Derek.
work out. Sorry, I love you.
Shut up. Boom on both sides, Harrison on both sides.
Yeah, which means for the most part it is going to be, you know, a fairly uneventful first few turns until those Dr. Boom Mad Genii do come down.
Good time to note, I think, that Swidz, for a very long time, has been an avid Warrior player.
Absolutely.
I think back to the tour stops I've seen him at, and even in playoffs, just every single time I would go look at the Swidz deck lists.
Yeah.
There was Dead Man's Hand Warrior. It was like the only person in the world that was having success with it, felt like.
Yeah, I remember, who was it? He was playing it a lot. It was, even though he's obviously not French, Maverick is very much, I would say, a part of the French speaking community, and also got his tour stop victory. I believe it was a DreamHack tour with Dead Man's Hand list. Obviously, it wasn't specialist. There was a lot of other stuff shaken in there. But the way these players know Control Warrior inside and out is their strongest asset. That's why they are able to go for these somewhat off-the-wall lines that most other players just would not spot.
I guess to touch on that point, I wonder if it's like previous experience or tendencies that could have led Swidz to play his previous series versus RDU in the manner that he did, where he was very conservative and waiting for the right perfect opportunity to try to unleash a game plan.
It's possible. It's also the fact, obviously, which is, I'm saying this to his credit, the fact that Boom was the bottom card in his deck, he adapted to that by doing something weird. He knew the standard game plan does not work then.
Right. I did agree with his line because he did not have Dr. Boom. But I'm curious, like, if that is an influence at all, like if something carries over where it's like you recognize you don't have it and it's just very instinctive, or it's something that he had to actively, you know, really think about and consider, or was it second nature to him?
Yeah.
I gotta move.
And here we see for Swidz, very much a continuation of the game plan that we saw from Seiko on the Bomb Warrior side of this matchup. You're drawing fast,
and this was
as fast as you can.
And again, I think this was different than how he played versus RDU, and so I'm pretty convinced that the lack of Dr. Boom is a big part of that.
Okay. I'm trying to think back. I think he was still drawing fairly aggressively against RDU.
I recall it not being the case.
Okay,
I could be wrong.
I too could be wrong.
Warrior series are long.
They are indeed.
It's hard to recall everything.
But I think this is much more in line with what we saw from Seiko in the previous series, and for Seiko, it worked pretty well.
It was very successful.
Obviously, the tech decisions for Swidz are not quite so powerful for when we got onto the second and potentially third game. In his secondary deck, which is pretty presumably, it looks like, the anti-warrior deck, he's got Ken, Archivist Elysiana, Grom Hellscream, the Boom Reaver, and Augmented Elic at the bottom, sorry.
The second Augmented Elic.
The second Elic, which does help him. There's no Youthful Brewmaster or Baleful Banker, though, which means while he gets a little bit of extra time with Elysiana, he's still got to be quick. He needs to be winning the game as quick as he can.
I kind of like the idea from Swidz here, where instead of having the bounce effect in the main deck, or the Elysiana in the main deck, rather, he just has the Augmented Elic. I think against aggressive decks, that service is much better. And when you take into account Warrior, his game plan is to now put an Elysiana in there. So he has enough time, and he has a second Elec as well. So he's able to utilize bomb shuffles a little bit more.
I mean, it's an interesting point, and it's also predicting how your opponent, how they will predict what you will put in your deck. Because if you know that your opponent is playing Warrior and they're going to put Archivist Elysiana and a bounce effect in their primary, you have to do the same, or you're basically conceding a series, or at least putting yourself at a huge disadvantage in that series. You obviously cannot make that conclusion, and then you have to go a little bit further. Like if you're Bomb Warrior against Control Warrior, do you need the extra shuffle with Elysiana, or will just one do the job, as we saw for Seiko in the previous series? It gets very confusing.
It does, but, you know, kind of talking further to the issue of how Seiko played very aggressively and it was successful, Swidz, when he doesn't have an Elysiana here, demonstrates to me that he's very aware of that. The aggression plan works.
Oh, yes. And it could still work. You know, we saw in the first series, Seiko probably would not have won without the Elysiana, but he could. He didn't play in the most aggressive way that it is possible for Bomb Warrior to play.
Also
his deck didn't allow it. Exactly. Yeah. That's the difference, is that his deck does not allow itself to be as aggressive as Swidz can, like you mentioned, with the Elec thrown in there for a little bit of extra burst. And as you know, we've been talking about pretty macro game stuff for the last couple of turns.
Well, that's what's happening.
Exactly. For the most part here, this is going to be pretty trading back and forth. They're going to play Boom as quick as they can, and they are going to.
I always have the question about
the
early Ziliax, but
I thought you meant about the early Boom.
You made the interesting point with the double banker, where he does have multiple opportunities to Elysiana over bombs. He doesn't have to wait until he's got 2 cards or 1 card left or whatever to play an Elysiana. He's free to play it as soon as his deck is hit like a fairly critical mass point. And because he's got 2 bankers, if he's drawn them both by then, there's way less risk to him running out of cards.
I would honestly say he can play the Elysiana as soon as he draws it. Obviously until turn 10, because he needs... Actually, no, because then he would destroy the second banker. Oh, okay, yeah, because...
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, also, like said, he has to wait a little while.
It's just once bombs get shuffled in.
Right,
like, as soon as that happens and he gets a payoff, yeah, good to go.
I agree.
It's very interesting to me. It demonstrates a very deeper thought and a different understanding and a way to think ahead of the game plan. It's like, if my opponent's going to be aggressive, how do I counteract that?
Right.
Second Baleful Banker for a third Elysiana.
But then we need to think about how this week hypothetically could have shaken out, because I would imagine Jarla is bringing Control Warrior because he wants to beat Rogue. You bring Control Warrior over Bomb Warrior because it's better against Rogue. It has more removal options, more armor gain, all that goodness, and less kind of clunky cards that you have to play in the middle. If he is expecting Rogue, why is the double Baleful Banker in there? Because it just makes it a lot worse. Maybe he says it's so good anyway that he's allowed to play double Baleful Banker to try and beat the Warrior Mirrors.
Hearthstone's hard!
Hearthstone's really hard!
It's really hard! So we finally reached a position where stuff's going to start going into the middle. First a Warpath down for Jarla.
Somewhat aggressive use. But I think, given that it clears a space in his hand, for which he has Omega Assembly to refill, which will get him obviously more mechs, which act effectively as removal spells, I can fully understand getting the 6 damage off the board. Or 5.
It's a pretty rough spot for Swidz. Just not a lot to do. Ziliax? Dinomatic? Like...
I was weighing the options in my hands there for those at home. The majority of viewers.
Tempo a weird thing. Perhaps nothing.
Is it 10 cards? No, is it 9 cards?
9 cards.
It doesn't have to do anything, right? Just save until... I mean, it gets... when you have 2 Omega Assemblies in hand, do you really want to be at 10 cards on turn 10?
No, I don't.
You just want to play something, right, to clear hand space. I like it. When the majority of the cards your opponent is going to be playing from here on in are mechs, Dynamatic is not that powerful.
So for Jarla, I'm curious when this Boom Reaver is hit and play. I honestly kind of like it right now.
Okay, then.
I guess the fear is if he hits an Acolyte from the Boom Reaver, that he still has an Elysiana that gets burned. And I don't think he can ever afford to burn Elysiana in the matchup.
No.
And so it's like a very minute pan out and risk, but it's present still. So find an alternative.
It absolutely is. As Jarla gets a reasonable selection, nothing like the one that we saw from RDU earlier on with, what was it, Ziliax, Omega Devastator, and a Beryllium Nullifier as well. All neutral minions here, but still pretty powerful. The Mechanical Whelp is a nice big boy that you can just start throwing down.
Well, that's always happening.
Yeah, got to get that damage off the board. You know, partially to protect your own health total, and also, again, because Swidz has to be the aggressor in this matchup. He's got to get the threats on board and beat his opponent down before Jarla can enter the fatigue state.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Wow. Two of those, I think, are pretty close to ideal. With the Omega Devastator and the Nightmare Amalgam. Kidding, the Boom Reaver.
Good one. Yeah, I mean, what's really better than that? Like, Ziliax? Yeah. Mechathune? Not really. Yeah, Boom Reaver's just better.
Yeah, I think I would take Mechathune, actually, just 10-10.
Boom Reaver's probably just better. Because if you're never winning fatigue,
replace the Amalgam is the one I'm looking at.
Right. I very nearly just thought that Boom Reaver recruits a minion from your deck. Again.
It would only be the third time we've discussed it.
Apparently that part of my brain just does not exist.
The listening to me part?
Yes. The being smart part. One day I will learn.
I'm incapable of listening to anything.
Okay, then.
Well, that makes me feel a lot better about the things I've said about you then.
Whew.
Because I'd be embarrassed if you heard how much I love you.
Okay,
that means TJ definitely lied to me about what you said.
And again, as we were saying, these rush minions acting very effectively, actually, as just more removal spells after Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, has been played.
This is a very different pacing than the previous series. Seiko, you know, borderline relentlessly aggressive.
Oh yeah, he both played his turns fast in terms of the actual seconds he spent on them, and he was playing aggressively. The game he was just trying to get over quick. Which I would say Swidz is doing as much as he can, but Jarla just feels like he's had much more stuff to fight back with. And I would say that partially comes from the fact that, if you remember back to the previous series, Seiko and RDU both played an Omega Assembly before turn 10, just for one card in that second game.
Yeah.
Both of these players are saving them, which means they both end up with more removal options and more threats, which I think just means it is more likely to get back to a stalemate.
When is Jarla Boom Reaver in?
Yeah. Is the Zap Cannon one you're really too sad about losing?
Well, so Jarla's the one on defense.
He's
the one who needs to maximize his life total.
Okay.
His game plan overall is to override bombs and run Swidz out of resources and have that be the win condition. So the laser feels unimportant to me. Again, the thing I'm still looking at is there are Acolytes in Jarla's deck. He does not want to risk overdrawing an Elysiana.
Okay. Okay.
That's been the whole reason that he hasn't been playing it, I think.
Real consideration.
So, A, how does he get his hand size to a point? Or when does he need to even? To where he can play Boom Reaver. Ah! And so that, to me, now spells the possibility of Boom Reaver becoming an option. Secondarily to that, if Jarla's keeping a big hand size and has control of the board, at any time he's free to wait and have the overdraw unimportant cards while simultaneously overdrawing bombs be a game plan. Diffusing bombs, as I heard Dan and TJ putting it yesterday.
That's cute.
I thought it was quite clever. And Swidz says, you know what? The time is nigh. I have 2 Boom Reavers in a row. Deal with it. Something interesting here is if the Reg Caliber ever survived, Swidz is able to sometimes hit Elec from Boom Reaver. Which would be
a good point.
An effective second Elec.
I mean, that's one of the best options, I would say, because everything is going to be removed no matter what, whether it's big or small. So getting an extra bomb in your opponent's deck is, I would say, about as good as it gets.
Oftentimes I have found in these kinds of situations that simply maximizing an opportunity for something fortunate to happen has been a great way to get an edge.
And here we go, a perfectly reasonable option for Jarla. And like you said, I think that the possibility, as slim as it may be, to overdraw Elysiana with getting Acolyte off the Boom Reaver, now that's passed, allows Jarla to go for this.
I really would like to see Swidz go for a Brawl here.
Would you like to see Elec first, and then swing, and then Brawl?
Nope. I would like to see 3 little 1/1s, and then a Brawl.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
However, if he goes for the Elec and swing, it does make some amount of sense to me because he's so light on actual removal that increasing your chance to win the Brawl versus having your opponent's minions stick to the board is a prospect.
He's also, I think, looking at Blastmaster Boom on this turn because you can get, I believe, the full amount of bombs, of Boom Bots activated, and going for that while your opponent has minions in play does make their Brawl worse. This is intriguing, though.
So Swidz was willing to accept damage to face either way. Makes sense. He's the aggressor in the matchup.
Well, the problem is he loses damage to his opponent's face 3 out of 5 times there.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 3 out of 5 being when any of the microbots survive.
It's very rare that I want to take security over Omega Devastator, but when my opponent has a 1/1 in play and nothing else, that's usually the time.
Oh, do you still just go for Devastator, though? It's so strong at removing these minions. It's so powerful. And that's what you're afraid of, right? He obviously doesn't know that double Boom Reaver is what he's staring down, but it's just mystery stuff is what he needs to be afraid of, and I think Omega Devastator does a better job of clearing that up.
No disagreement there. I'm not going to fault anyone for taking Omega Devastator over Security Rover. It's just so annoying.
For a master plan.
I agree.
Oh, I love that.
And it's hard to use. You rarely get to use it.
Yeah.
Omega Devastator is just not hard to use, though.
I mean, on this turn, he doesn't know what to play. He needs to play something unless he overdraws. But he's saying, you know what, in this situation, I'm happy with an overdraw. Elysiana and Baleful Banker, one of them, are in hand. What if that overdraw is a bomb? Or a Brawl? That's bad.
Nah. Who needs a Brawl when my opponent just played a Boom Reaver?
And is trying to kill me as quick as he humanly can.
I do see the reason he did this, though. It's for the exact reason I described, which was he's safe. He's not facing pressure. He doesn't need to do anything. He's the one defensive.
We saw this from RDU against Swidz in Swidz's previous series in the first week of GM, and it was a fantastic maneuver from RDU, I think, to mitigate that damage as much as possible. As, I mean, here, the obvious play is Omega Devastator, Hero Power, you clear off everything and end up with stuff on board 2.
I'm curious how interested he is in using Shield Slam. And
okay.
The shield block is a bit risky, I think, because if he starts drawing bombs right there, it diffuses his shield slams. So I'm a bit interested by that. He's clearly accounting for the shield slams being major tempo plays.
That is a good point, actually. I think he just wants to draw through his deck. Like, he just wants to spend the cards in hand so that he can play Elysiana quicker. Because now that he's found, obviously, double Shield Slam, one Brawl's been overdrawn, one's in hand, he has an Omega Devastator, he's got a lot of removal. He just needs to get threats to solidify board, which is what Elysiana does.
So the 2 impact points would be a plethora of bombs in the deck, or he draws second Baleful Banker.
Yes. Okay. I wonder how, I would be very interested to hear Jarla's thoughts right now as to how important he thinks the second Baleful Banker is. I would assume not very, but nice. Well, there it is.
Does just everything happen this turn? This is weird. So he gets to use Shield Slam. He gets the second Banker.
Yeah, so would he ever Brawl here instead of Shield Slam? He loses all his armor anyway, so it has to be Shield Slam this turn, right?
Oh,
Like Shield Slam Hero Power, sorry, is the major play I'm looking at.
I would think conservativeness with the armor total is like, you know, I don't want to keep both Shield Slams as a result of that, because then you're relying purely on the ability to get 7 armor. That being said, this is one of those situations where I actually love mitigating bomb damage when I'm a defensive player. I like pouring minions into the boombots somehow, seeding tempo, and having answers afterwards.
And Jarla's doing just that. He's throwing everything he can in the way first.
It's just extra health total he gets. He doesn't need the minions. He needs minions just simply to fight against what Swidz is throwing at him.
Takes 2 damage.
Preserves 6 armor.
Okay, I can see it. I could also very much see the Shield Slam being used earlier, as now they are significantly less.
Yeah, that hurts a lot for Jarla, because he was relying on Shield Slam to clear a turn like this.
Do you know what could kill a Boom Reaver? An Omega Devastator.
Huh. You're right.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons I said I was, you know, a bit concerned with saving both Shield Slams in an instant.
Yes, that's why I wanted to go Shield Slam last turn.
Yeah. Even if I'm still going to go with Owl, like, you know, consider throwing a Harrison in the mix? Probably not.
Oh, no, I think absorbing the rest of the damage with minions is something very much to consider. Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Because this game is still going to go on for a little while, so maybe I'm looking at it too much in the immediate, where these Shield Slams obviously now are not very good anymore. They will almost certainly become good again at a later date. It's just whether or not they'll be able to bridge the gap at this point, which is the scary bit.
Alternative use of Baleful Banker. You don't need the second one, so it's Brawl Fodder.
The alternative use is it's buff as heck, so it could just take out a Boom Reaver.
That is devastating! It's just an Omega Banker!
I think my uncle's an Omega Banker.
You're over here playing checkers, Yara's playing 4D Monopoly. Did your friends ever cheat Monopoly when you were growing up?
All the time.
Why do people play the banker and then just like stuff $500 bills in their pocket? I'm like, yo, it's a game, all right? It's a game.
You know what? This is the perfect opportunity to call him out. Matt Robson of Class 5e, if you're watching, you were the biggest Monopoly cheat I've ever played with in my life. Unbelievable.
And now Derek's long con has finally paid off.
It's finally come to fruition.
One-ones are so annoying. There's just so many of them.
And, like, to Swidz' credit, whether it was designed or not, he's got himself in a position where when his opponent had low armor and no blast shield hero power, he had big minions in play. Now when the blast shield hero power is active to activate the shield slam, he has small minions in play.
Yeah, it is like a miniature puzzle piece that Boom presents, which whatever hero power you're staring at very often will help mold what types of plays you should be making.
Yeah.
Sometimes plays are just so powerful, you ignore it. Sometimes your plays are very situational, require some amount of success, and you gotta time them. And that one, it does just kind of fall into place. He gets 3/1/1s when Jarla has armor up. When Jarla had Kaboom, played the Boom Reaver.
Yeah.
It just makes sense.
It does indeed. I mean, you get players breaking the rules with what you're quote-unquote supposed to do. Like with, for example, Seiko played Boom Reaver instead of Discover a Mech, I think it was last game, or was it the 7 armor that he passed over? One of the good options, basically. He just passed over with Boom Reaver. I think it was the Blast Shield that he passed over.
It was at some point he passed over Discover.
I think he did, definitely, yeah. Which, again, in the Warrior Mirrors, you very rarely do that because it's the best one. But showing that if you're willing to break the rules, you can come out on top.
Swidz an opportunity here to secure some real damage with either Beryllium Nullifier or with Ziliax. You know, I think that's, as him being the aggressor, one of the focuses of the game plan is securing cards that are not damage into damage.
Right.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
It becomes weird when you factor in Omega Devastator, because if he can get a Beryllium Nullifier to stick that is not immediately hit with Omega Devastator, that's going to stick around for a while. Or, actually no, it would, but there's an owl as well. And I guess because of the owl, he doesn't feel comfortable magnetizing it.
Oh.
He doesn't want it to go back to a 1-1 or a 1-3. I think this is honestly wise, because the difference between having a 3-8 and a 4-11 is, you know, it makes a difference, but the fact that Owl would be so dreadful for you if you did that, I think makes it worth it, especially as either way, Omega Devastator could clear it off here with the hero power.
That's the biggest bottle of water I've ever seen Swidz drink from. Some nice options here for Jarla.
Yeah, a lot of good options here. I mean, what are we looking at most? Obviously, Omega Devastator to take out the 3-8.
You're devastating.
Then hero power and 3-drop. Just play stuff. Like, you just want to clear off the board every turn, make sure you're not taking any damage, and Jarla should be just fine. And again, even though he already threw down a Baleful Banker in the brawl earlier on, he is still in absolutely zero danger of losing in fatigue. Even if he plays the second Baleful Banker, he's still in absolutely no danger of fatigue.
That is a huge amount of respect for Swidz' potential to get aggressive here.
Right, so this is the interesting thing, where, as we've alluded to before, fatigue is not a consideration for Jarla yet. He's still very much winning. The ability to replace a deck full of bombs is the consideration. He could do that one time now with Elysiana.
But that's only if Swidz launches bombs before he gets to the end of the deck.
Right, and Swidz knows this now because he knows the deck list, they're all open. He knows double Baleful Banker was in the primary deck list. So maybe now he does wait for Jarla to draw his whole deck and then go for it? Or at least to play Archivist Elysiana and then go for the bombs. But then Jarla knows that Swidz knows that, so maybe he slows down on the card draw so that Swidz would have to wait until he's 5 turns into fatigue before Archivist Elysiana is even played.
Yeah.
And I know that Jarla knows that Swidz knows that, so I'm saying it. As we're in that already classic spot for the Control Warrior up against the Bomb Warrior. You play your mechs, you rush them in, you clear everything off, try and mitigate the damage. As now for Swidz, things are getting juicy. Augmented Elec, Clockwork Goblin, and Wrench Caliber are all in the same turn. Is 4 bombs that you can shuffle in one fell swoop.
Also, this Replicating Menace.
Okay.
Delivers a 7 damage blow to Jarla. That is big.
That's scary.
That's a big deal.
So now for Jarla, this is where the 2-pronged attack comes in from Swidz, where if Jarla doesn't find time to play Archivist Elysiana soon, Swidz can just shuffle all the bombs in and hope that he draws them before Elysiana comes down. But if he does Elysiana soon, the minions on board will just kill him.
And he has to Weapons Project to fend off another 4 damage hit, which means that Swidz gets to deal 6 additional damage, or he doesn't have to worry about his Wrench Caliber being gone.
Absolutely.
And suddenly you're looking at Jarla's position and wondering, what happened to the 2 Baleful Bankers? Why on earth are we at 27 with no Ziliacs? And how did we end up in this spot where we still have a Shield Slam?
Oh.
And a Clockwork Goblin gets discovered.
Those are premium options, my lord. Clockwork Goblin? Can you pick the Goblin?
Yes. You put the Goblin in your deck. Now, granted, you also put the Omega Devastator in your deck. 2 copies, in fact.
Oh, Devastator's so
Swidz.
good. But Goblin's so good. It's got to be a Goblin, right?
Look, I already have a Shield Slam. And I haven't needed it for pretty much the whole game.
Yeah. Yep.
It's setup time. You know the Harrison is still there for Jarla. I would think that the Harrison is not as big a deal as the Weapons Project overriding the Wrench Caliber would be.
So he's letting rip with one of the bombs. He is not waiting 100% until Archivist Elysiana has gone down. Because again, once Archivist Elysiana is played, replaces your deck with 10 cards that you discover as a battle cry, which does destroy the bombs that are currently in your deck. Rover is the option? You can go Rover Warpath to gain a lot of health. I guess the pressure's more valuable. And here we go. The Elysiana is down. This is the only ability that Jarla has to play it.
I just had an epiphany watching Jarla now. He knows that Swidz doesn't have an Elysiana.
Yes.
You run Swidz out of stuff. You play Elysiana so that you don't just die to a giant bomb shuffle.
Yeah.
And then you just pressure them out. You have cards and they don't.
Yes.
Whoa!
That's the win condition.
An Elysiana being there or not being there is so weird.
Azalina being there is even weirder yet again. Do you pick it? Is it too slow? Maybe it's just Smoldorn. Maybe it's just Bluegill. You just kill your opponent. Bluegill goes face.
Kor'kron Elite goes face.
2 Kor'kron Elites go faces.
Whew. That is a good deck.
So, 6 out of the 10 cards in there arguably summon Kor'kron Elites. The Boom Reavers could get it, or the Dimensional Rippers could get it as well.
Could have 8 Kor'kron Elites post Elysiana.
But now, the Elysiana, this deck is what Jarla has. He has to make do with this. It's a good deck, to be sure, but Swidz can now wait for some of the cards to be drawn, go off with these bombs, and pray that he can somehow get there with a flurry of explosions to close things out.
So Swidz, okay, he is adding to the board this turn. I was about to say, if he's not adding to the board this turn, wouldn't you have favored the Warpath into the 3/1/1s? Because, I mean, probably not. When I'm thinking about it, these are your last few resources. If you need time for bombs to go off, you need ways to clear boards.
So at this point, could he win with Mechathune if he discovers it?
I think he...
Just as a backup win condition.
Not reliably, but you always can, yes.
I guess we focus on the primary win condition for the moment. Then worry about that nonsense when he runs out of stuff.
Separate the Ziliacs, yep. All right, I think Jarla has substantiated an edge here.
And so here, for Jarla with no armor gain, no life gain, 23 health, at minimum, Swidz has a chance for lethal next turn with Elic, Wrenchcaller, Clockwork Goblin, Swing Face for exact lethal with 4 bomb activations.
Now, it's a rare chance, and Jarla has time to find a way to gain health, but he really cannot afford to take increments of 5 damage at this point.
He cannot. And so therefore does he.
Okay, then.
I was thinking just get the mechanical whelp active.
You attack in, you zap. Okay, yeah. We could even see the
Oh, I love that view.
the spark engine.
I like the spark engine.
The Rush Boy.
This leaves you with a 7/6. And at this point, foregoing lasers, I think, means something as well.
Okay.
Ah, secure even more board.
I like it.
Additional 2/1.
He just got that out of nowhere.
And so for Swidz, at the second point of fatigue, he has to calculate how far he can go. And so he's going to Warpath what it looks to me like he's concluding Warpath 3 times, chip away for 2 more.
Yeah. I mean, if he waits a turn before he goes all in, it's another shot. It's one less card that he has to contend with before he goes for the all-in bomb plan. Again, this is very unlikely to work out for him.
Whoa. Tank the 7 is interesting.
Wait, so if he...
But did he tank the 7 with the weapon? Okay, I didn't expect that. I expected him to be using the Clockwork Goblin on the following turn.
I expected him to push everything face.
Yes.
Because then that could bring his opponent down to
3 consecutive bomb draws.
15, which is exactly 3 consecutive bomb draws.
Because of the Wrench Caliber swing on the following turn.
Yes.
Because he's going to take the 7 damage either way once he's used the laser to face.
So the extension of that is then, is he afraid of Ziliax being able to magnetize on to the mechanical dragon, blowing him out? I would argue he's in such a bad spot that he needs to not play to outs like that anyway. And so now he needs 4 consecutive bomb draws in what will be a 12-card deck.
Jarla played nothing on the previous turn. No Nightmare Amalgam. No 2/1.
Right. He wants to use them as removal just to rush in. He knows
if they're in play and your opponents rush into them, that's kind of the same thing.
And there we go. The draws were not found. Swidz is not dead, though. Not quite yet. And Jarla has still no health gain. Swidz is going to start dying fast. Jarla's deck is full of Corcoran Elites and Dimensional Rippers.
Piloted Reaper is actually pretty good here as well. You get to stick an additional 2/1 in play. You play Spark, you play Piloted Reaper.
Okay.
You trade it with the Reaper, you get a 2/1 in play, and then you get the Nightmare Amalgam. So you stick a board of like 1 health stuff that has attack on the front end.
He really wants to play the Harrison as well on this turn, though. To obviously destroy the weapon.
That, to me, says you should have played the Nightmare Amalgam last turn. I wonder if that's an oversight.
Very possibly. How much armor? He has no armor right at the moment.
This would be a good time.
And so Shield Slam is not a possibility. He's just not playing the Harrison. Which means another bomb activation for Swidz. There will now be 5 bombs in the deck.
And also gets set down to the 3 breakpoint. 3 bombs is what it takes. And Security Rover found. Security Rover is more chip damage, though, because if you're going to kill the front half, you're going to summon 2 3s. Right. And if you're going to summon 2 3s, you got to kill those too. Wow. I mean, this is down to the wire.
He's in the game. It's still like less than a 50% chance for him to even draw 1 bomb, let alone 3. But it's possible.
Laser found.
Okay.
Fatigue is piling up for Swidz as well.
Swidz is dying fast.
But if Jarla doesn't take out all minions on the opposing side,
he will die to 1 bomb.
And there's 2 left. Security Rover is very annoying to kill in totality.
So wait, if we were to see 5 Warpaths here, that kills the whole board, right?
No.
Would it leave 1 2-1?
Well, think of it. The last Warpath summons a 2/3.
Oh, it doesn't. Yeah, yeah. Even if it's it's not just when
so
it
are you
survives.
thinking laser and then 4 Warpaths? Would that work? 2? No, it'd leave a 2/1 around.
Right. Oh. And he has to do it, or he is getting dangerously close to dying.
He has a dragon in hand because of the Nightmare Amalgam. That's why he held onto the Nightmare Amalgam.
No way! What?
What a genius!
That's sick. That is absolutely sick. I mean, who knows? Maybe it would have worked out even better because he could have played the Harrison before, but if that's his reasoning, that's a pretty big god read.
5 fatigue taken.
Jarla is 1 damage off with the ping from dying to 1 bomb. There are 4 left in deck. He needs to be hit by 2 to die. Whether the ping comes to face or not on this turn makes no difference.
It would make a difference if you got Kaboom exactly.
Yes, right. So later turns, it starts to make a difference. But then you need to
you
consider
have to ping face
how fast am I dying?
Ping face and brawl. You're going to take 6 fatigue on the following turn, so you're effectively at 17 health.
Okay.
You're going to take 6 from the minions and 2 from the weapon. That sets you to 9, and then you have 1 more turn. So if you brawl this turn, it's very likely Jarla can just add pressure. So I think the brawl is irrelevant. The hero power to face, though, gives you a 25% chance to roll a Kaboom, because you cannot roll the laser again.
As much as he would love to.
So my question is, does the 7 armor hero power ever add a breakpoint to it where the brawl could matter in that regard? It's just little tiny things.
It's too much to think through. There's too many unknown variables for Swidz with all the discovered cards off Elysiana. It looks like he's saving the brawl. Oh no! He's going for it at the final second!
If you don't use it, and it would have mattered, and he rolls Kaboom! So now Jarla, if he rolls 2 Core Chrono Elites, that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 plus 6. So 19, he doesn't have the damage for lethal ever. So he is now at the mercy of whether or not he will draw a bomb from the deck.
Ah! He misses anyway.
7 armor. If he fades the draw...
This is it! This is it!
It all is here because Swidz is dead to fatigue anyway on the following turn. Jarla needs to avoid drawing a bomb and does. 1-0 lead for Jarla.
Oh my lord.
I love Warrior Mirror matches.
That was unbelievable. And you just know that along the way there must have been so much stuff that could have been done differently to make it better or worse for either side. The armor gain that was used early on, the shield slams that stayed around in Jarla's hand for a long time, which could have been used early.
24 mana nudge that you're giving right there in terms of just stats that are dedicated to dealing damage.
More of a sledgehammer directly to the face.
Yeah.
Than a,
That's Warrior in a nutshell.
As Jarla is sticking with his primary deck list. He's gone with a somewhat interesting set of secondary and tertiary decks, deviating from RDU's strategy, as obviously the other players bring pure control warrior. He's got one of the kind of anti-Nomi decks, as RDU did with Deathwing thrown in there, and then his secondary deck is clearly the anti-mage variant with a Big Game Hunter and Super Collider. But it looks very much like his primary deck is already the anti-warrior strategy.
2 Ironbeak Owls, 2 Weapons Projects, a Harrison Jones, 2 Baleful Bankers already in there with an Archivist of Luciana, and he's up a game.
I mean, if it comes down purely to fatigue and who can prevent it for the longest amount of time, clearly Jarla is at an advantage with double copy of Baleful Banker.
Swidz really not happy with this Acolyte of Pain.
So many choices.
Don't play your Town Crier on 1 then.
Well, I think he's unhappy with the fact that he drew Ziliax instead of Militia Commander from the Town Crier.
That's probably a little bit more like it, yeah.
Don't play a Ziliax then. Apologize for the spectator issue. We'll get this fixed as quickly as we can here. But I feel like this game is, given how Game 1 operated, Swidz has to have the advantage overall.
I would agree with you. I think there's definitely argument for the other side, given that Jarla just has way more cards that he can play throughout the course of the game. Elysiana and double Baleful Banker puts you at a huge advantage again in terms of fatigue, but if with activations rolling and take out the Control Warrior.
Something else to note in that was RDU is bringing Youthful Brewmaster for the sake of flexibility, being able to bounce back an Omega Devastator. At the cost of that, when you use it with Elysiana, you lose a 7/7 from play.
Yeah.
That's a major deal if your opponent's plan is to be aggressive against you.
Exactly right. Why Jarla will definitely be happy he has the bankers in his deck. Not only because it obviously adds an extra card to his deck, as we've alluded to, the absolute extremes of fatigue as we actually start approaching the end game state where 45 turns, the game simply ends at that point and it would be in-game declared a draw. It's very unlikely to get to that point.
Yeah. And that's a 7/7 with Banker that you can take to the bank. Oh, nailed it. Toughest pun of my life. It's not even really a pun.
Sorry, hold on. I've just received word from production. No, you didn't. Dang it. I appreciate it.
Oh, thanks.
It's just mean Mike.
Mike, the producer of the show. Thank you very much, Mike.
Yeah, you're the best. As here for Jarla, obviously the easiest move on this turn is just to move to clear it. Militia Commander Ziliax both do a very nice job of that. I guess he's thinking this Warpath probably isn't going to be good, so let's use it now.
Yeah, Warpath sucks in this matchup. What, you gonna 5 times Warpath and Omega Devastator?
I'd like to see that.
Avoid using a critical tool. Avoid seeding Swidz a clean turn with their own Dynomatic. Just use a dumb Warpath and live till the next day.
Yeah, I like this a lot as well.
I think Warpath and Brawl are tools that I actually use very aggressively in Warrior Mirrors. In fact, I hate having them in my hand because I often like playing the control role and being very conservative. I think the rest of your tools are so powerful because you're fighting against clunky tools to begin with, that it can come to cost you at times, but for the most part, I prefer to just simply use them.
I think that Swidz would absolutely be using his Brawls very aggressively. I should say, if he still had them in the deck. Obviously, switching over to secondary, he takes out 2 Brawls, a Warpath, and 2 Eternium Rovers. For Jarla, on the other hand, he does have to be a little bit more conservative with Brawl in particular. Warpath, I absolutely agree. Use it where you can to eke out the value. But Brawl, I think we've seen a few scenarios up against the Born Warrior where even just if there's 2 minions on board, killing one of them with a Brawl is perfectly reasonable.
That's kind of an interesting thing to note too, is the removed cards for Seiko. When he's opted into this aggressive game plan, takes out Shield Blocks, Acidic Swamp, who's Eternium Rover. You look at Swidz, he removes 2 Brawl, a Warpath, and 2 Eternium Rover. Interesting. He favors the Shield Blocks over the Warpaths, and frankly, I think I agree.
Yeah. I fully agree. No matter what side of the board you're on here, you want to be drawing cards aggressively because both players know that Jarla will win in fatigue if both players let it get to that point. So therefore, Swidz needs to accept that, move on, draw cards, and use the limited time that he has to apply ultimate pressure, maximum overdrive.
I'm learning a lot. I like learning.
Me too. Haven't done it in a while, but that just makes it extra special when I do.
Quick, what does the Boom Reaver do?
It summons a copy of a minion in your deck. I'm learning.
The past tense of learning.
Yep. Are you proud, Admirable?
Yes!
Are you proud?
Finally!
It's happened. He did it. He did not play Dr. Boom on curve.
I am now officially declaring Jarla the best warrior player in the world.
Because he didn't play the best card in the deck on curve.
Because he had a better play.
No, it was the right play. I agree.
Oh, I'm so happy.
This is the end of your story arc. It's come full circle now.
Just transcend.
Rise up into the loft. I mean, I think it was right. Also, it maybe will lull Swidz into a false sense of security that he doesn't think the Dr. Boom is in hand. He could probably figure out that even if Jarla had it in hand, he'd go for this instead because, man, is that killing Ken.
Look at the play.
Yeah, well, no, it was very powerful. Jarla will, I imagine, well, I don't want to say learned his lesson because he probably will have known it before, but making sure in this instance that he denies all damage from his opponent will stop him from getting into that situation we saw from Swidz in the last game, where it was simply a 50-50 for the game.
Yeah, I think you know, the efficiency of this one spoke for itself.
Yeah.
But I do expect to see Jarla pay a bit more attention to the damage that's incoming. Not only I think does his hand afford for it better, but I also think that he's just in one of those situations where if you can maintain control, it's very difficult for it to slip away.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
However, with, you know, that bomb being drawn for, well, I suppose for Jarla, Swidz shuffling in, I think that means there's no bombs left in the deck at all, and so the Blastmaster Boom is currently just a 7/7 for the moment until more bomb cards are found. And kind of a lull here in the storm for Jarla.
Yeah, it's not really much to do this turn.
Okay, then.
You know, I look back to the use of Ziliax in the previous game, where Jarla had used it at full health pretty early on.
That's true. I forgot about that.
He didn't really have another option to clear other than just creating board tension. And when you create board tension in a Warrior Mirror match, that's dangerous because they have very powerful removal effects.
Then.
I swear he did have other clear options though, right? Like he could have. He could have shield slam.
I think it could have shield slammed or something.
Yeah,
but
or maybe even a warpath. Maybe it wasn't that useful. But Jarla is clearly showing he is not afraid to just throw down Ziliax in this matchup.
I was just about to say, I'm curious if he's genuinely considering this. You know, I do think it has more merit here because it's clear. You know, Swidz has clearly demonstrated he does not have Dr. Boom at this point. He absolutely would have played it.
Absolutely.
So with that being said, it does make clearing your minions more awkward. That is a definite recognition from Jarla on this, is that if your opponent doesn't have Dr. Boom, they have to spend stuff to clear your minions, which means they're just not pressuring you.
That's right, as Jarla is churning through the removal from Swidz. Next turn, however, is the kind of refill he will be looking for. Omega Assembly, I imagine, will just be slammed down, followed up by the delivery drone as well. Who knows, maybe he can get himself another Ziliax for the late game to heal himself back up.
I wonder if it's ever correct to not Omega Assembly just yet either. Like perhaps you like tempo out a Dynomatic and you reserve the Omega Assembly in case you keep rolling delivery drones over and over again.
Right, okay, because you're always pressing delivery drone, right? Because you want to do it when it comes around.
Yeah. The thing about it is that Omega Assembly, you're pretty much always going to get something to spend.
Yes. And so again, after we've seen the kind of the dream from RDU in the previous series, this is a little bit more down to earth in terms of the mechs that he's getting here. Jarla really not finding the premium options here.
Well,
you know, the Omega Devastator is obviously one of the best ones, but the rest a little underwhelming.
I'm curious if Jarla can actually just begin his own pressure plan. You know, like control decks, when they get ahead, they don't really close the game in a spectacular fashion. They kind of just slap you around with just the extra junk that they have. As Swidz, he has to start spending to avoid the chip damage being overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, a lot of times Jarla is just able to begin his own pressure plan, and it just staves off a lot of the resources that Swidz would normally have.
Absolutely. Like you said, it comes down in no small part to not finding Dr. Boom, because those resources have to be expended on clearing minions instead of using them to get minions in play to go phase, which means the pressure on Jarla is an awful lot lower. Okay, that's reasonable.
The Goblin Bomb, not so good, but Clockwork Goblin, you'll take those.
I thought you meant the Clockwork Goblin when you said the Goblin Bomb wasn't so good for a second. I was like, are you okay? Do you need a doctor?
Clippy just shows up. He's like, I see you've said Clockwork Goblin isn't that good in a Bomb Warrior deck. Would you like some assistance with building decks?
I see you're trying to be intelligible. Would you like some help?
Job done.
And so this is
I'm curious about this swing right here.
Yeah, overall, this turn is actually much more important, I think, than it may first appear. Because it looked like he was just setting up for a kind of mundane turn at the start, and then deviated at the last second into going for a full bomb turn. 4 cards shuffled into Jarla's deck. And I wonder if, because he switched over to his secondary deck now, which is so much threat heavier, he's wondering if he doesn't have to go for the same win condition he went in the previous game, where he finalizes on bombs. Instead, he's thinking, I'm just going to win through board pressure.
Yeah, so contrast this with Swid's first game. Very patient, very much waiting, came down to the wire. In Seiko's first game, he had access to Archivist Elysiana. He was very much aggressive in the early game.
He was.
Swidz now has access to one Archivist Elysiana. He's executing the game plan similarly to how Seiko did in his first game with the 1 copy of Archivist Elysiana.
Excellent point. And I would say that's probably just a pretty good play from both of these players. Metagame or macro speaking in terms of their overall game.
Ooh.
There are well over 3 bombs in the deck for Jarla. So now, as soon as Swidz
summons
wants to let
10 boombots.
The rest just kind of have to huddle in at the sides there.
So many choices.
It's rare you get a Diamatic use, so probably want to seize that.
Yep. Maybe he'll get really lucky and hit all of them on the Harrison.
Let's find out.
Light the fuses!
1, 2, 3, 4. Wow! Nailed it.
It's broken, but it's effective.
I mean, it's like the text says, only to non-mech minions.
If only, admirable.
Fun fact, Harvest Golem used to not be a mech.
It's true. Along with... What's the 1/4 mech called that deals 2 damage?
Demolisher.
Demolisher. That also became a mech.
It often demolishes my discoveries.
As does Goblin Bomb. But there's no joke there, so I'll stop talking.
So the difference of magnetizing Beryllium Nullifier for Jarla as well, we saw Swidz not do it in the previous game in Fear of Ironbeak Owl. Jarla doesn't have to fear silence at all. That's just a super effective card against Swidz.
So in that instance, both of the 2/1 mechs are functionally identical. So it doesn't matter which one he throws it down on, it's just whether or not he wants to, I guess is the question. To which the answer's probably yes. Like,
well,
you want to wait until the Omega Devastators come down, but what possibly baits them out?
Swidz almost certainly removes the 2 brawls when he goes over to the secondary deck. Jarla doesn't know that Swidz has gone to it, but he pretty much knows. If that's the case, Omega Devastators offer a lot of tempo in this situation because the lone warpath in Swidz has been used.
Right.
So finding the timing to use Omega Devastators to generate tempo and push back against Swidz is a very interesting prospect. I think the reason he didn't do it was because he hadn't seen...
Ken.
He hasn't seen a Blastmaster Boom.
Oh, right,
is the reason I think he hasn't done it.
Right.
So now that he sees Blastmaster Boom, once this gets cleared out, I think Jarla's going to take a more aggressive stance with those 2 Omega Devastators and just start to punish Swidz for not having board clear options.
I like it. And, you know, just to further, I guess, bolster your point, he does know that he switched over to the secondary because Ken has been played.
Oh, yeah, he did see
dealt with.
This would be a good time for a
So, yeah, like you said, he knows that the removal options are significantly lighter.
Even ahead of time, if he hadn't seen it, you still pretty much know.
He knows. Yeah. He pretty much knows.
I don't think that he went over to Big Game Hunter and Super Collider.
It would be a bold call.
And it would not pay off.
Also a bad one.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
So obviously, many ways for Jarla to be able to clear off this board. We saw in the previous game his hesitance to take face damage off of the boom bots, which arguably won him the game, going for that play to deny the extra damage that came through. And so we'll very possibly see that again, where he loads up minions, then he goes for the warpath. He's consistent in his strategies. Didn't work out great for him here when it just went 4 on the guy on the unpowered Steambot straight away, and then he tanked a lot of damage afterwards.
Still absorbs 4 damage, though.
Right, yeah, that's 4 that didn't go face.
It's a 2-mana card that says can't attack unless you played a spell that turned into 4 health. And now he's got a Mega Devastator down. He's pressuring. Swidz doesn't have options for clear because he doesn't have Dr. Boom. Just got the Omega Devastator. Jarla's got a backup one. We're getting to that point where Jarla can weirdly start to take an aggressive stance.
Yep, absolutely he can.
No.
For the moment, though, Swidz is holding on remarkably well. The problem comes from the fact that as soon as Jarla does pull ahead on board, Swidz can load up his own side of the board very effectively. Because he doesn't have Dr. Boom in play, he can't remove immediately very well at all. Which leaves Jarla obviously available to use his own removal options like his Rushing Mechs, Omega Devastator, Weapons Project to clear off Swidz's minions and push damage face.
Boom Reaver helps.
I gotta move.
And also, to be fair to Swidz, in Specialist format...
Defend the gates.
Okay.
I was going to say, given that he's switched over to his secondary deck, again, 5 cards different
He missed armor.
to his primary deck, he has not found many of the tech cards that help this matchup, I was going to say. Which is somewhat unfortunate.
Security Rover. Golly, that card is so annoying.
I mean, it almost just won the game for Swidz. Jarla's, genius play of holding on to the Nightmare Amalgam was the only thing that allowed him to go Smolderhorn Lancer to take it out.
Seriously, that play does not get nearly enough credit because it happened so late we didn't have enough time to talk about it.
Amongst the community.
That play was so important.
Yeah.
It was so important.
And the best thing about it is that it was a complicated play. It wasn't like he just found a strictly good play. He took a different line, the alternative of which also had upsides in just playing it out. It was a conscious decision he made, and it very much indicates his playstyle.
By the way, you still have a 1-3 in play versus a 2-3 Security Rover. Not a very fun spot.
Yeah. And therefore, Swidz is going to say, you know what, I'll take this 1-3 and add a 7-9 and a copy of a minion in my deck as well. But nice and easy for Jarla to
Did he
clear
just
up
not
yet again.
attack with the Eternium Rover? He just didn't attack.
Huh.
That's never correct.
Just wrong. So that's 2 just mistakes. But it wasn't summoned in with Rush, was it?
It was already in play. He just didn't attack face.
I would say Swidz is getting pretty upset. Obviously, you know, the missing the armor was roping out there, but this is not slow and considered play anymore, which is something I associate with him very much.
This would be a good time for a master plan.
And, you know, it's understandable why he's getting upset. He's being just beaten down, as you predicted, by Jarla. No Dr. Boom in sight for him. It doesn't matter how much he's able to get onto the board and in play, because it's just going to be removed every turn while this chips face.
Finally, it's gone. Sort of.
And so now for Jarla, if he wants to turn up the pressure, another Beryllium Nullifier really allows him to do so. But he takes the Omega Devastator even then.
He's got a huge lead. And there's no way for Swidz to answer wide board states. The Omega Devastators become much more powerful if your opponent does not have AoE.
I mean, I guess with already one Beryllium Nullifier, the redundancy becomes less powerful. With these 2 Omega Devastators in hand, he can just kill everything forever.
And he can go face at that.
And he is going face at that. He's learned his lesson from the warriors that we've seen do oh so well so far in the Grandmasters. Yeah, I think he's realized no warpaths left for Swidz, I believe.
He genuinely contemplated just preserving the health on it.
Well, I guess even against warpath it wouldn't make much difference. I guess just keeping stuff in hand, right? But even then, there's no brawl available to Swidz. He's just got nothing.
He's got to fight back, honestly, and he still doesn't have Dr. Boom.
So no rush. So he's having to shield slam 4/4s. Omega Devastator, what, 4/2s?
I'm not hitting the 2-3 with it.
This is dreadful for him. And Jarla, to his credit, he is finding the weakness in Jarla's game plan at the moment and exploiting it as much as he can, launching everything through to the face to close it out before Dr. Boom is found and Elysiana is played.
As soon as you get that advantage, leverage it.
Yeah.
You have Dr. Boom, your opponent doesn't. Attack.
Kill him.
Don't let them find it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's what we often see against a lot of decks with key cards. Against rogues, you kill them before they find Myras. Against mage, you can kill them before they find Conjurer's Call. So Jarla really wondering,
This would be
I guess, if he's allowed to play the Omega Devastator here.
He can just do whatever he wants. There's no board clears on the other side.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously this is very powerful. I do wonder if this is absolutely optimized in accordance with his current game plan, which for the last few turns has been launch as much damage faced as he can. He did not magnetize the Beryllium Nullifier onto an attacking minion. Obviously, this gains him a huge amount of armor, especially if the Omega Devastator does not come down for Swidz. I do wonder how valuable the armor is going to be to him. Maybe it just closes out any backdoor wins for Swidz to try and go for crazy bomb lethals.
Now 4 bombs left in the deck.
Right.
Unless I missed an additional one from somewhere.
I was thinking it might be 3. Or was that the second swing of the Wrench Caliber?
So he's played 3 Clockwork Goblins, is that right?
Oh, has he played 3? Oh, okay.
Was it 2 or 3? I want to say it was 3 because I think he discovered one, right?
Yes, he did, and he played 1 at the start. So has he played 3 altogether?
I believe so.
I think you might be right. Again, it's been a lot of Bomb Warrior mirrors here in Grandmasters. But for the most part here, thankfully, Jarla is on the aggressive. So the bombs for Swidz are not of the utmost significance, especially as Jarla will very likely just be throwing down Elysiana on one of the coming turns. He's got Boom, he's got a Baleful Banker, he just does not care.
He's just under so much pressure. Just inefficient ways to answer back. Still, nope, so he does not. So it is 3 bombs left.
Okay.
You're right. Unless I was right, and now I'm getting duped.
I mean, it's complicated because he went for another Elic bomb turn, right? Yeah. Either way, still, for the moment, he cannot be fighting for killing Jarla. He has to be fighting just to stay alive.
Grom. Defensive Grom. Should be 1 left.
Wow. I mean, they're coming out in force.
We're going to find out if Derek or I was right next time. On bomb draws. That draw was the bomb. It has a certain different meaning now.
Yeah, not quite what you're looking for. But for Jarla, it's, you know, they were going to come sooner or later. I guess, actually, no, I guess because he was going to replace his deck with Elysiana. That was actually pretty unfortunate for him to get them all right there.
It's pretty much the worst.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
So at this point, I think he's just protecting himself from a second Elic by playing the Elysiana.
Right. Ooh, there are some very, very big minions here. My lord. What was that? Boom Reaver? Big Bad Archmage Grom?
And a cheeky Mecharoo.
Just to round out the squad.
Oh, I took the Dark Iron Dwarf, I think. Can't eat the Banker either. There's not really any removal on the other side. You just wait.
And there we have it. Mechanical Whelp, Boom Reaver, Big Mad Archmage, Grom, and Dark Iron Dwarf. That is absurdly high in value.
This is my large warrior deck. It's not big warrior, it's large warrior.
Is that a step up or a step down from big?
It's
adjacent.
It's just different.
So many.
They mean the same thing.
Right. And here again, without rush from the Dr. Boom, Swidz is unable to clear the board. Bottom 3. Now I remind you, first game of Grandmasters it was bottom 1. Now it's bottom 3.
Oh my!
And Jarla yet again is going to try and close this out front.
It's being closed. You know, I sometimes say when luck shuts the door, you got to open up the window. Sometimes luck just evicts you from the home. And there's nothing you can do about it.
You got to feel for the guy. But to be fair, Jarla, sorry. I think he optimized his lines a lot of the way here. Like, the couple of things we found weird about his gameplay, or just different to what we would have done, was early Ziliax usage a lot of the time felt like, even if you're not going for healing yourself out of dying later on in the game, it's still more useful just as a magnetic, to put a big minion in play to hit face with. But it's clearly worked out fantastically for him this game, easily dominating board control. As well as soon as he needs it, there's obviously a little bit of burst available with brawling to blow up these goblin bombs.
I gotta move.
And so how does Swidz get out of this?
He can't. There's nothing. I mean,
Elysion has been played, so there's no bombs. 2 bombs that he could shuffle in now does not do it.
If he wasn't looking at 7 armor across the way, his chance would be literally drawing a Wrench Caliber next turn. But there is 7 armor, so there's nothing he can do. His chance, I think, in the face of that 7 armor was literally play Archivist Elysiana and just somehow, some strange way, find a way out of it. Instead, Jarla's going to brawl, and Jarla's got Shield Slam, which means that he can kill both of these Goblin Bloms and deliver a lethal blow. Jarla, 2 games to 0 over Swidz. The second game, much more decisive.